was always the Jags.
Always the Jags.
It's always the Jags.
Always the Jags.
Welcome into Always the Jags, your number one podcast for all things Jaguars, all things Jacksonville, all things Duval. Y'all, the Jaguars are number one in the AFC South. I'm going to repeat that again. The Jacksonville Jaguars are number one in the AFC South. Let's take a look and break down how the Jaguars reclaimed our throne by taking down these Tennessee Titans out in Nashville. First thing I want to say, I actually was at the game in Nashville. I saw the tickets were $11. Like, I just randomly saw $11 tickets, and I was like, I have to figure out a way to get there. So I live in Jacksonville now, and I apologize for the mess behind me. I'm still moving into our townhouse in Jacksonville. My wife and I recently moved from Charlotte to Jacksonville, so I'm 9 hours away, and I'm like, look, I'm off on Monday. These tickets are $11. I got a big SUV. I'm going to see the Jaguars beat the Titans in Nashville. I'm going to support my Jags on the road. First thing, it was cold as crap. I do not recommend this for any Jaguars fan going to a game in Nashville in November or December because it was cold as crap, and we are not built for that. I had to ask for hot cocoa multiple times, and people saw the Jaguars attire that I had on, and they realized, oh, that's why he's not really used to this. I had my big sweater on, but still, it was pretty bad. So it was cold as crap, so be prepared for that. Second of all, I was surprised at how well the Jaguars traveled. I don't know if there were other fans coming from Jacksonville or from other parts of Tennessee or wherever, but there was a good amount of Jaguars fans there. Like, I was expecting to almost be the only one. And it's not like it wasn't as it's not like the stadium was split like when the Cowboys came to town or like when the Chiefs came to town and it was like half Jags, half Chiefs, or half Cowboys, half Jaguars, right? But there was a surprising number of Jaguars fans in attendance. Pretty much every time I walked around, I could see somebody. And I was like, oh, Duval. And we all were passing Duvals. Even as we left, we were able to throw up some Duvals, and I got some responses back. And there was a section closer to the field that was almost entirely Jaguars fans. You could see the sea of teal. And I'll post some pictures on my Instagram and on my YouTube if that's where you follow me, wherever you get a chance to look at these. So that was my initial thoughts of just, wow. Love seeing all these Jaguars fans out here in Nashville for us to get a win. And the Titans Stadium is actually pretty cool. The screen, right? You can watch the big screen as you're walking up towards it because from whatever direction you're coming from, part of the stadium is open, so you can look directly and see it. So it's pretty similar to Everbank Stadium. Slept in my car there and back at a rest stop. I brought some couch cushions and I put them in the back of my car so I didn't have to spend for a hotel or anything like that. And it was awesome. Spent a lot of time on the road, but it ended up being worth it because the Jaguars took down the Titans and left no prisoners. Unfortunately, I was a little bit late because Eastern time versus Central Standard Time kind of messed me up a little bit. Forgot the game was going to be at 12 p.m. for them, not 1 p.m. for us. But either way, Jaguars went in there and we took care of business. And that's the important thing. And that's what we needed to see from the Jaguars team. Can we take care of business? This was a classic letdown game and people were thinking that the Seahawks was a classic letdown game. No, that was a Super Bowl contender, right? So like the Seahawks were better than everyone thought. We were thinking after that big win over the Chiefs, most people still weren't sure who the Seahawks were. And they were like, they're coming to town. This could be a letdown. Turns out it was just a Super Bowl contending team. Right? Like that was a buzzsaw. The Seahawks have beaten every team in our division. I don't think the Colts are going to beat them either. So this was the classic letdown game because after our, being on a win streak and having to go to a division opponent who knows you well, because like we played that role for the Colts multiple times throughout the past 5 years. Actually going all the way back to 2014. No matter how bad we are, no matter how terrible we are, no matter who the quarterback is, the Colts can't win at Everbank Stadium. Jacksonville doesn't have a good history in Nashville. However, I will say this. Nashville was Trevor Lawrence's coming out party. That was Trevor Lawrence's coming out party. He also suffered one of the worst losses in his entire career there. So it's kind of a mixed bag for us, right? Like the first game where we really saw the potential of Trevor Lawrence was when the Jaguars beat the Titans 36-22 in Nashville. And he was firing on all cylinders. That was one of the best. That was the first good game of his career. That game. Because that was all him. It was all him with his arm. And then 2023, we ended up suffering one of the worst losses there because it knocked us out of the playoffs. All we had to do is beat the Titans and we get into the playoffs. And the Titans did to us what we did to the Colts in 2021 when Trevor Lawrence beat them and kicked them out of the playoffs. They did the same thing to Nashville where they weren't playing for anything. They had nothing to play for. And they still beat us. And it's partly because, I think it's because Ryan Tannehill went back in the lineup. If Will Levis was playing, we would have won that game. But also if, Luke Fortner didn't get demolished on a 4th and 1 play. Anyway, so we have struggled there, right? We have struggled there. Last year, though, we swept the Titans. Always feels good to sweep a division opponent, especially when it's hated as the Titans, who demolished us during their, even when we were good, like even when we were, no matter how bad we are, we always beat the Colts. But no matter how good we are, the Titans seem to have our number. So that's why it felt so good. Like whatever the Titans did to clean house and change their culture, I'm so happy for it because it allowed the Jaguars to get some revenge on them these past few years. Because even in 2017, we lost to them twice, which is one of our best years within the storybook franchise years where we thought we should have made a Super Bowl run. And obviously going all the way back to 99, where the only team that kept us from the Super Bowl was the Tennessee Titans. The only team. So Jaguars do not like the Titans. We do not like them. And so to be able to put them down and eliminate them from the playoffs, they were already eliminated a long time ago, but mathematically say, no, you're not getting in this year, felt great, honestly. And overall, the thing that I feel the best about this game is the growth and the way that we did it. Because in most of our wins, whenever Travis Etienne has like over 100 yards, I think, I'm pretty sure we win. Whenever he has a run for 45 yards or more, pretty sure we win. That's how we beat the Chiefs. That's how we beat the 49ers. That's how we beat the Cardinals. And that's how we beat, there was another team where he had a really big run, right? One of those long gashing runs. I think it was against the Texans, actually. He had a really big run. We tend to win those games, right? But the Titans came in with a very specific game plan. Stop the run. Test Trevor Lawrence. Force him to beat you. Because Travis Etienne and Bashal Tutin couldn't get anything. They got one touchdown, maybe like 20, 30 yards apiece. It was very bad from a running perspective. But it didn't matter because Trevor terrorized them with his arm. He did it with his arm. Liam Cohen saw the game script, saw what was happening. Trevor Lawrence saw the defense, saw that they were selling out to stop the run. And he beat them with his arm. Beautiful pass to Parker Washington. Beautiful pass to Jakobi Meyers. Ended up going for 50 yards. And then once Bashal Tutin scored on that play, I think, or no, Trevor hit Jakobi Meyers for a touchdown on that play. Few plays later, fumble, LaQuint Allen, an incredible 7th round pickup. Like the drafting that James Gladstone has done. If you look at the way LaQuint Allen has impacted our team, like it seems small, right? But just this fumble recovery changed the entire dynamic of the game because it allowed us to go up by 2 scores after the Titans had marched down the field and gotten 3 and looked semi-competent marching down the field, right? And, making passes. Cam Ward was looking better than he had a lot this season. And then that fumble that LaQuint Allen caused and recovered shifted it. And I'm sure you could pick out a handful of games, a handful of plays where LaQuint Allen picked up the blitz and blocked so well that Trevor was able to get the ball downfield. There's a lot of games we wouldn't have won this year without LaQuint Allen. And that man needs his flowers. And James Gladstone needs his flowers for seeing a good running back, a good blocking running back who can play special teams and picking him up in the 7th round because he's been the difference in some of our games. He literally has. So anyway, we get a chance to go up and then 2-point conversion. And that touchdown pass to Brenton Strange. I mean, obviously Trevor Lawrence was protected really well. I don't even think he had to he was just standing there waiting for someone to come open, and Brenton Stranger's right there down the seam. And again, the Titans were selling out to stop the run, and they did. They effectively stopped the run, and so Trevor Lawrence effectively won the game with his arm. It was 15-3 after that. It went a little bit cold offensively. After the half, we were able to kick another field goal to make it go 18-3. And then after that, it was just kind of a punt fest between both teams. It's like at the end of the day, we won by 22 points, which is hard to ask for in the NFL, right? Like winning by 22 points, that is 3 scores, 3 touchdowns most days, at least. What more could you ask for, right? But in the second half, I did notice our offense kind of went cold a little bit, mainly because Jeffrey Simmons was able to get pressure up the middle. And that's something we're going to have to look at. I don't know how well. I think our tackles played pretty well. I think the issue was interior pressure. Interior pressure was getting to Trevor Lawrence and forcing us to end drives before we wanted to. And he got sacked, I think, once or twice. And there's a couple of times where I don't know if I think he was just, I guess he was tucking the ball and going down instead of throwing it away. And, or maybe he was throwing it and then decided not to and pulled it back and ended up getting the guy. If he was feeling that pressure, again, I prefer for him to throw that away because that would have saved a couple of the drives. A couple of those sacks absolutely killed our drives. But because our defense was playing so well, the Titans could never get back in it, no matter what. Because the Titans' defense played well enough for the Titans to be in this game. The offense didn't play well enough for them to be in this game. They couldn't get anything past the Jaguars. And that was the game we were playing without Eric Armstead and without Trayvon Walker. So credit to our defense, who's playing without some of their biggest stars. Like, again, if you look at the Texans defense, go ahead and take out Will Anderson Jr. and Sheldon Rankins. How many sacks is that defensive line going to get, right? Like, when you remove the stars, sometimes stuff happens. And the Texans defense is relatively healthy this year. Ours has not. Our entire team has been injury riddled this year. And that's probably going to help us go into our next segment for what I want to talk about next. But really just an overall clean game, minimal penalties. And the penalties that we got, I mean, we actually had a lot of penalties. When I said minimal, they were minimal impact penalties. Like the Titans penalties that they gave up directly led to points. By that, I mean, they gave up Arden Key started a fight when the half was almost over, which gave us the chance to get an extra second and an extra 15 yards, and we kicked 3 points. That penalty led to points for us. Roughing the kicker, horrible penalty because it happens on 4th down. Now we get a fresh set of downs, and Trevor Lawrence marched them down the field for the touchdown that ended up being the knife blow. That's when we went up 25. Horrible penalty by the Titans. If those penalties don't happen, it could be a different game. We'll never know. Would have been 15-3 at that point, but those penalties directly led to points. Directly. So that's what I mean by the penalties that we had weren't as impactful in the points percentage. But when we come home, we definitely have to clean it up because the Colts are going to be able to take advantage. The Titans couldn't, but the Colts will. So that kind of leads me into our next segment, and I'll talk about the Colts, and I'll talk about how injured we are. Let's talk about the Colts and what we're going to need to do to beat them. Because the pendulum and the momentum is 100% swinging our way. 100%. It is swinging our way. The pendulum for the Colts, all the momentum is swinging away from them. And the best thing we could have for this game is to happen at home right now, because that gives us the best chance to win, because the Colts have not won there since 2014. Now, history is meant to be broken and rewritten. So it doesn't matter how long ago the Colts it doesn't matter how long ago we last beat the Colts, or the Colts last beat us at home. Because remember, we hadn't beat the Texans at our home, since 2017. Streak almost as long, because the Texans were able to sweep us in 18, 19, 20, 21, they beat us at home. 22, they beat us at home. Yeah, the Texans were able to sweep us in 18, 19, 20, 21. They beat us at home in 22, beat us at home in 23. We didn't win at home again until this year, 25, because they beat us at home again in 24. So this is a huge game. This is going to, obviously it's a huge game. It's going to decide the division. but teams have been breaking records left and right. You know what I mean? Like, we can't rely on the history to say the Colts will just come here and crumble. We have to force them to crumble. And that's what I mean. We need to force them to fall apart. I don't know if that means deferring or if that means taking the ball. Whatever it takes, go down, start early, start fast, score that touchdown, get that interception. And then you can let history take its course, right? And then Colts fans and Colts players will start to feel like, oh, here we go again. And then don't let up. And I don't think this play calling got conservative in the second half versus the Titans, but the offense let up, by allowing that pressure in the interior. We can't afford to let up. We can't afford to let up because the defense, this is going to be a shootout. The defense is going to give up more than 3 points, okay? They're going to give up more than 3 points. And the Colts defense is, honestly, without DeForest Buckner or Sauce Gardner, the Colts defense is not worlds better than the Titans. It's better. They've got better edge rushers, better linebackers. Charvarius Ward, I still think is a fantastic player, but they are missing their best defensive tackle, Grover Stewart. Like, no one DeForest Buckner. No one on that line, DeForest Buckner included, comes close to Jeffrey Simmons. He's just a different animal. Those other players that the Colts have are not on his level. So that's one thing we can't take advantage of. And, the Colts are going to try a lot of different things in order to lock down the passing game and stop the run because they know the run is the key. But the thing is, how will they be able to accomplish it? That's the big question, right? Because with Sauce Gardner and Charvarius Ward, the Colts probably feel confident that they could lock down our 2 starting receivers and then play Kenny Moore in the slot, who's still a fantastic slot receiver, stick with man-on-man there and let the safeties patrol the box. And that would be a recipe for victory because Charvarius Ward and Sauce Gardner are really good enough to go against any receiver combo in the league, and especially our receiver combo, which is good but not dominant. It's great, but again, not dominant. We're not the Cowboys. We're not the Bengals. Jamar Chase would give Sauce Gardner problems. CeeDee Lamb could give him problems, right? Charvarius Ward, again, he's a very, very good starting. He could be a number 1 cornerback on most teams in the NFL. I feel like the Colts have 2 number 1 cornerbacks, honestly. So, with that all being said, without Charvarius Ward, I don't think the Colts will be able to single cover our receivers. I think whoever they play at their second receiver spot is either going to have to cover Parker Washington or Brian Thomas Jr., and that can be exploited. I also think if Liam Cohen runs the right route and lets Brian Thomas, accelerate, he's faster than Charvarius Ward. So rather than using route running skill to beat Charvarius Ward, trying to make him miss or anything like that, let him run and let him use his speed. Put those go routes on. Because if Charvarius Ward is dealing with him and they have to take their safety from the top to go help cover Brian Thomas Jr., and he takes Charvarius Ward with him, that'll open up things for Parker Washington, who I feel confident with the way he's been playing this year and the catches he's been making over defensive backs. He can handle the Colts' number 2 cornerback. And the battle between Jakobi Meyers and Kenny Moore in the slot will be interesting. That'll be an interesting battle because I think Kenny Moore and Jakobi Meyers are probably right there to go with the best of them, and they will be competing for each other all day. And that will be the matchup that, some of those Jakobi Meyers is going to have to win if we want to come out with a win here. And then, of course, that leaves Brenton Strange, who is kind of a mismatch for linebackers because I think he's faster than most linebackers. So, and that'll open things up. Again, if Brian Thomas Jr. is taking that top off the defense, which he was doing a little bit more in this Tennessee game, and I'd like to see him do even more of it. When we look at the best team that Trevor Lawrence played with, his weapons that complemented Trevor Lawrence the best, when he was playing his best football. Because I would argue Trevor Lawrence's individual performance, his best football came at the end of 22, not even at the beginning of 23. It came at the end of 22. Who did he have? He had Christian Kirk working the slot and able to go deep. Working the slot, and sometimes he would go deep from the slot. He had Zay Jones, who essentially was going deep every single play. Every single play. And he had Marvin Jones, who was reliable, perimeter, can make contested catches. Who do we have right now? And who is he going to have next year? Brian Thomas Jr. He can If Liam Cohen just looks at Brian Thomas Jr. and says, okay, be a better version of Zay Jones, right? And it might sound like, oh, well, Zay Jones wasn't a number one wide receiver. Brian Thomas Jr. is supposed to be a number one wide receiver. I don't care. Is he better than Zay Jones? Yes. Is he faster than Zay Jones? Yes. Okay, Brian Thomas Jr., your job is to play Zay Jones' role in that offense that made Trevor Lawrence so great. Take the top off the defense, run the routes, and Trevor will put the ball up. And again, Trevor Lawrence's best games with Brian Thomas Jr. were on deep passes and deep throws when he was just running down the field. And that's what we need to have him do. Instead of having him run slants, going across the middle, just let him go down the field. That's it. Let him be the big play machine. That's what he does. That's the Alec Pierce role in the Colts offense. And that's why the Colts offense works so well, because everybody's playing their role. And, the speedy receiver can sometimes be the top receiver like Tyreek Hill is. But sometimes a speedy receiver can be the third or fourth. It doesn't really matter what pecking order they are. I'm pretty sure Alex Pierce might have more yards than Michael Pittman. You just have to play your role. And your role is to stretch the field, because there are very few receivers with speed like Brian Thomas Jr. Secondly, who else did? We had Marvin Jones. Parker Washington has become just as reliable as Marvin Jones for that year. And Travis Hunter became a contested catch. He could be that contested catch guy when he comes back next year, as we saw from the highlight plays that he had against the Chiefs and the 49ers. Again, look at Marvin Jones and say, okay, Parker Washington, you need to play that role in this offense. And then Jakobi Meyers, who is literally just Christian Kirk, just a little younger. That's it. He's only 1 year younger, but reliable, does the dirty work in the slot, over the middle. I hope we can re-sign him for about a 13 million, 3-year deal. And if that's the case, that'll be the steal of the century for James Gladstone, because not only was he able to trade for a player, test him out, make sure he worked. If you can tell me that we can get a younger, less injury prone Christian Kirk for $5 million to $8 million less a year, I mean, James Gladstone wins. And I think at the end of the season, if Jakobi Meyers gets offered $13 million a year, I think he takes it. I really do think that he takes it. And I think he says, yeah, to keep playing with Trevor Lawrence, because he knows it's raising his stock, he's enjoying it, and he doesn't have to be the engine focus of the offense. So Jakobi Meyers is going to be fantastic. So that's the recipe for what made Trevor Lawrence good at 22. All those three receivers were each playing a specific role in the offense. They didn't have to be a number one receiver, but they were playing a specific role in the offense. And I don't think Liam Cohen's I don't know if Liam Cohen's offense really requires a number one receiver, but clearly Trevor Lawrence benefits. He benefits from having receivers playing their roles rather than having a number one target. Because look what happened when we brought in Calvin Ridley. Some of the worst games came when they were trying to force feed Calvin Ridley instead of just letting him play a Marvin Jones role. So let these guys play their roles, and we will catch the Colts in bad situations. Of course, dump offs to the Quinn Allen and Travis Etienne will be a good way to stress out that Colts, linebackers and secondary. But yeah, we obviously need to run the ball. And again, the way the running that's gotten us the most success, a lot of times we've been running it at the team's best player. So like we ran it directly at Khalil Mack. So Grover Stewart, I don't know if he's the best player on their defensive line. He's very reliable, but I would say run it right at him. Like put your two guards and push him out of the pocket and let your running back run behind them and make everyone else catch them. Or if it ends up being Latu, he's coming on nicely for the Colts. Again, I think Anton Harrison should be able to handle him. Honestly, I think Cole Van Lannon should probably play over Walker Little. Walker Little's done some nice things in the run game, but in pass protection, Cole Van Lannon has just been incredible, playing multiple positions along the line. Robert Hainsey had his first down day against the Titans, and maybe that's from going against a guy like Jeffrey Simmons. I mean, he hasn't really faced a defensive tackle like that since maybe Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams, but he still played better in that Titans game. So hopefully this is more of an aberration, because we need Robert Hainsey to be at his best. Like, I need Robert Hainsey to be able to win some one-on-one matchups against Grover Stewart. And that should be feasible. That should be reasonable for him to be able to do. Wyatt Malum came into the game. He was a guy that I really pumped for. Welcome to the NFL, basically moment there. But as long as our two guards can hold up and prevent that interior pressure, we have a good chance to win this game. And I think we will win this game. I think the Colts will come to Jacksonville and the Jaguars will remind them why they haven't won here in so long. It'll be a much tougher test for our defense to hold up against the Colts offense. But as long as Eric Armstead is playing, Trayvon Walker will be back and hopefully further removed from having that club on his hand. But you got to make Daniel Jones uncomfortable. And we have quietly assembled the number one run defense in the NFL. Like almost silently assembled the number one run defense in the NFL. And it's funny because like in our worst seasons, we were terrible at stopping the run. Like when we had Unique Ngakoue and when we had Calais Campbell, we couldn't stop the run to save our lives. And now we're the number one in the league. And Eric Armstead, as ballyhooed as that move was made last year, he's playing fantastic. He leads all defensive tackles in sacks. All defensive tackles. He's playing great this year. And so Devon Hamilton and Eric Armstead, hopefully he's back. We keep clogging up the run. Foye Oluokun is still continuing to make plays. And then the Colts, like, obviously we're going to have to double team probably Alec Pierce. Jordan Lewis versus Josh Downs in the slot. Josh Downs is crafty. Josh Downs is very crafty and he's very quick. So Jordan Lewis will definitely have his hands full. And hopefully Jordan Lewis can use his veteran experience to kind of help put the clamps on Josh Downs. Because that's a one-on-one matchup we're going to have to win and rely on. That Jordan Lewis can clamp down on Josh Downs. Michael Pittman will definitely have to be doubled. I don't know if we're going to run. We're probably going to continue to run zone. But whatever zone Alex Pierce runs into is going to need to be double covered because he is emerging as the Colts' number one wide receiver because he can get so deep down the field, and Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones can actually throw him an accurate deep ball. Because Anthony Richardson could always launch the ball down the field. It's just, was it actually going to hit the receiver? No one really knew. Daniel Jones can actually hit him down the field. So that makes him a threat. And then Michael Pittman is always there for those contested catches. See how, like, if you gave the Colts receivers to Trevor Lawrence, he would make sweet music with them because they all play a specific role. And they're all really good at that role. Like, again, I like Travis Hunter. I think he was the right pick, but I can't help but think, like, if we had picked Tedero McMillan, stayed put and just picked T-Mac, he would have played that final role that we would have been missing, the contested catch guy. You need your slot receiver, burner down the field, contested catch guy. 3 different roles for 3 different, and the offense makes beautiful music that way. So, with the Colts, yeah, like I said, so Michael Pittman, they won't be able to allow him to make some of those contested catches. I would feel a lot better if Eric Murray was back as well. I think he's just opened up the window, so I don't know if he'll really be back. But I think he provides a lot in our deep, like he's good at reading a quarterback's eyes. And it's not like he's necessarily been making plays, but he's been able to figure out when the guy that needs to be doubled is doubled, right? And he's been able to, he doesn't get caught lost out of position very often. And he's even made a couple of ball hawking plays. You know, he had a stick tackle one time that jarred the ball loose in the Panthers game, had an interception. We haven't really heard from him since then because he's been out for the last 4 games. But if he's back, I would feel fantastic. I would feel a lot better about this game because that would allow Andrew Wingard to play closer to the line of scrimmage, where, again, the Colts are going to try to run with Jonathan Taylor. And Andrew Wingard can come in there and do what he does best and hit those guys. Now, what Andrew Wingard cannot do and what we cannot allow is for Tyler Warren to get going. That is the secret weapon. And that is something Devin Lloyd is really good at running those stunts and blitzes, but he's also much better in coverage than Andrew Wingard is when it comes to tight ends. So maybe fake it a couple of times with the stunts and blitzes with Devin Lloyd. But if Devin Lloyd is blitzing and Wingard is coming down in coverage and Tyler Warren's going over the middle, I'm not comfortable with that, right? So we need to switch it up and let Andrew Wingard do the blitzing and then have Devin Lloyd drop back into coverage against Tyler Warren. Because I will never forgive the Bears for allowing him to fall to the Colts. It's not going to happen. Colston Loveland is coming on, but they just let him fall to the Colts. And it'd be scary to think how much better the Bears would be if they actually had Tyler Warren. Because Tyler Warren and Daniel Jones are the difference is why this offense is night and day. Because Tyler Warren can block and he can catch. And that's what makes a great tight end. When you're almost as effective in the catching game as you are in the running game, that's what makes a complete tight end. And that's what turns an offense like the Chiefs and the 49ers with George Kittle and Travis Kelce. That's what allows them to do so much. So that's kind of my breakdown of this game and how I think it's going to go, and what we need to do in order to get the victory. Obviously, stop Jonathan Taylor, but we also need to be able to get home with 4 so we can play coverage because there are enough competent guys in Indianapolis's skill positions to get open. And so for that, we're going to need all 4 of our guys, Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen, and Josh Hines Allen, who's really heating up against the Titans. He was probably our best pass rusher, only viable pass rusher with Walker and Armstead out, and he still got 2 sacks, right? They are double teaming him, they are chipping him, and he's starting to find out how to fight through those, right? He's starting to find out, like Myles Garrett, you're lucky if you beat him on a double team. He's about to break the sack record for the year. It's insane. Josh Hines Allen is starting to figure out, okay, how can I beat these double teams? How can I beat these chips? And then when Trayvon Walker and Arik Armstead are back, you're not going to be able to do those all the time. So Indy's offensive line has been playing really well and still blocking. But again, if we're able to get home with 4, we can play coverage and we can force the Colts into some bad situations. Now, of course, needless to say, in order for this to actually be a home game for the Jaguars, we got to have Jaguars fans there. And clearly everybody heard it because I saw the tickets go up by like $50 in price from the beginning of the week. From like the time the Tennessee game ended and the Colts-Texans game ended, like you could literally, the price went up of those tickets from before those games started to after they ended because everybody knew now what pressure is on Indy to come with the win and how Jacksonville can maintain our division lead by beating the Colts. So I'm definitely going to be there. Me and my wife are both going. If you can, absolutely try to make it. If there are some last minute tickets, try to grab them. And if you're not going, I mean, obviously you probably want to sell your tickets, but like give them away if possible. Like if you can afford that, if you're going to miss the game and you're unable to sell them by the time, just give them to somebody because we need every seat packed out. And Colts fans, I don't think there's a whole lot of Colts fans down here. And I don't think they travel that well. So we can pack out the stadium in teal. I don't want to see a single blue or white jersey. We can pack it out in teal. And this is why, because this game has huge implications for the playoffs. So let's talk about the playoff picture a little bit. Huge implications for the playoffs because basically, if we win this game, Sunday night, the Jaguars are all Texans fans. Because if we win this game, realistically on our schedule, we've got 2 more wins and probably 2 more losses if we win this game, right? Titans and Jets, again, don't want to count your chickens before they hatch, but that's why it was so important for us to go and beat the Titans in Nashville right now, because since we did that right now, that takes all the pressure off of us to beat them at home later in the season. Obviously, we still have to win, but we're going to be at home. We're going to be relaxed. Last time at the end of the season, when we had to go to Nashville to beat them, the pressure was heavily on us. This game, because it's in the middle of the season, it was a chance for a letdown game, but the pressure wasn't as heavy. So going in and beating them and shutting them down, if we can beat them 25-3 on the road, we're not going to lose to them at home. Just got to make that clear, no matter how much Cam Ward shows out. And that'll be the last game of the season. And we will have to win that game. There won't be any resting starters or anything like that, unless we somehow beat the Broncos, because I don't think we're going to beat the Broncos. And I don't think we're going to sweep the Colts. I think the Colts are going to beat us in Indy. But we need to beat the Colts at home. Because if we do, now we're going to become Chiefs fans, right? Because the Texans down the stretch, they have proven with their defense, they have raised the elevation of teams and players they can beat. I kind of thought the Bills were going to beat the Texans, but, that defensive line being at home as well really helped out the Texans. And I thought they were honestly going to lose to the Colts. I thought the Texans and the Colts would split. But I thought the Texans would lose to the Colts at home and then beat them at home. So now that the Texans have already taken 1 game from the Colts and that was in Lucas Oil Stadium. Now the Texans are in serious danger, or the Colts are in serious danger of being swept by the Texans. So here's why we need the Chiefs to win if the Jaguars beat the Colts tomorrow. If the Jaguars beat the Colts tomorrow, or beat the Colts on Sunday, we can go 11-6 down the stretch, and that shouldn't be unrealistic. Beat the Titans and Jets, you're 11-6. Done. Or no other game matters except beat the Colts, Titans, Jets, 11-6. That is enough. If we tie at 11-6 with the Colts, and I think the Colts will get back on track. Their schedule is tough, but I think they're good enough to beat the 49ers. And I think they're 8-4 right now. I think they're good enough to beat the 49ers. I don't think that the Texans will sweep them, and they have one more other winnable game on their schedule. I just can't remember what it is. Besides, they're the tougher games that they have in their schedule. So if we and the Colts both go 11-6, we win the division. Based upon, I think it's conference record or something like that, but we would win the division. Oh, the Seahawks. The Colts still have to play the Seahawks. That's a loss. Yeah, we would go 11-6, right? So the next losses I see for the Colts would be Seahawks and us. And I think everything else they have on their schedule could be a win. Because I think they'll beat the 49ers, and I think they'll beat the Texans round 2. I don't think the Texans are going to sweep the Colts. They could. They're in danger of it, especially because that first one was at home. But we'll see. For right now, we would go 11-6. And we really can't bank on the Texans beating the Colts in that last game. And I'll tell you why in just a second. So that's why we need to beat them, because then we would go 11-6. And then the Colts, if they go 11-6 as well, we would now be tied at the top of the division, which means the Texans, they have a real chance to go 11-6, right? But they'd have to beat the Chiefs. Right now they're 7-5. The rest of the games on their schedule are not hard. Chargers, Cardinals, Raiders. I think the Texans are good enough to beat all of them. The Chiefs and the Colts are the last two teams that can realistically take down the Texans. But if the Texans go 11-6, they win the division based upon conference record. So, and I think it's because they beat the Bills and they beat somebody else and the Ravens. And we lost to the Bengals and the Colts lost to the Steelers. So conference record, they would have an advantage there. So since they beat the Ravens. So in that case, if the Texans go 11-6, they would win the division. If they win out the rest of the season, they would be 11-5 before the last game of the season when they face the Colts. And if the Texans are 11-5, they would have wrapped up the division. They would have clinched the division no matter what, whether they win or lose in that last week. The Texans will have won the division by week, what would that be? Not week 17. Which means there's a good chance the Texans would rest their starters against the Colts, which means the Colts would have a chance to win. And if the Colts, it depends. So if we beat the Colts, then the Colts winning that game would make them go 11-6, and they would just tie at top of the division. But if we lose to the Colts, then the Texans would want to beat the Colts in that last game so they can go 12-5. That way the Colts don't go 12-5 if they end up sweeping us, because whoever goes 12, that would actually be for the division. But if the Colts beat us, if we get swept by the Colts, we end up going 10-7. So if we end up going 10-7, then we would need the Texans to beat the Chiefs this Sunday night. Because if we go 10-7, I think the Chargers are definitely going to go 10-7. I don't even know if the Chargers will go 10-7, honestly. Chargers getting to 11 wins is a tall task. But if the Texans beat them, that will be their 7th loss. They will be 10-7. We would beat the Chargers and the Chiefs for that final wild card spot. The AFC North is going to beat up on itself too much for us to worry about them. Only one of those teams is getting it out of that division. And Bills pretty much wrapped up that 5th spot. And it's going to be so it would just come down to that last wild card spot between us and the Broncos have wrapped up the West. So it would come down to the last wild card spot between us, the Chiefs, and the Chargers. We wouldn't have a chance to win our division, but we could beat them. But if the Chiefs beat the Texans, they have a good chance to go 11-6. They do have to face the Broncos, but the Broncos are going to be playing in Arrowhead. And in that last game, I don't trust the Broncos to sweep the Chiefs yet. I don't think we're there yet. The Chiefs aren't doing as well as they usually do, but I don't think the Broncos are sweeping the Chiefs. realistically, I think the Chiefs have a good opportunity to win out if they beat the Texans. So, again, just to refresh the scenario, because that was a lot to go for right there. If the Jaguars beat the Colts, we are Chiefs fans. Because that means at the end of the year, that Colts-Texans game will be for who gets into the playoffs, not for who wins the division. We will have won the division if we beat the Titans in that last game, because we will be 11-6 at that point. That would be our 11th win. So the Colts and the Texans would be fighting for that last spot if you just assume that the Texans beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. And because if the Colts win and they go 11-6 and they get in, and the Texans would be 10-7, because the Texans would have losses to the Chiefs and the Colts right then. Or the Colts would go 10-7 and the Texans would get in at 11-6. And the Texans would actually win the division over us if they beat the Colts in that last week. So, but we would still get in as a wild card 11-6. So we would still get into the playoffs, right? But we want to be able to control our own destiny. We want to be able to get in as division winners, obviously, but just best path right now, the most important thing is getting in. And we want that last game to be the Colts and the Texans fighting for who gets in, because it'll make both teams desperate. And again, I don't really think the Texans will sweep the Colts, but it could happen. But we definitely have to beat the Colts. Obviously, sweeping the Colts would be fantastic, but we definitely have to beat the Colts. Now, there is a scenario where we don't beat the Colts, right? In Everbank. They snap their streak. Could happen. Don't want it to happen. In that case, Jaguars are bona fide Texans fans. Go AFC South. Because the Texans would be the knockout blow for the Chiefs. Now, there's a lot of things going for the Chiefs because they have there's a lot of things going for the Texans because that Chiefs offensive line is beat up. But the Chiefs still have Patrick Mahomes. You can't count him out until they have been eliminated from the playoffs. And if the Texans beat the Chiefs, the narrative of the national media will be that they're done, and essentially they would be, because we have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So the worst scenario is for us to lose to the Colts and for the Texans to lose to the Chiefs, because that would put us fighting against the Texans for the last spot. We would both then we would drop to, what are we right now? We're 8-4 right now. We would drop to 8-5, and the Texans would be 7-6. So they would only be one game behind us, but their schedule is much easier down the stretch, and they have a good chance to win out. If the Texans lose to the Chiefs and we lose to the Colts, especially if we lose to the Colts, that also might mean that last game of the season, the Colts may not be fighting for anything, because the Colts might be ready to go 11-6. But I don't think the Colts can afford for the Texans to go 11-6, because if the Colts let the Texans sweep them, then the Texans would win the division, and I don't think the Colts would allow that. So it's a very complicated scenario. So basically, scenario A, what we want, the best scenario, is for the Jaguars to beat the Colts and the Chiefs to beat the Texans, because that gives us a very good chance to win the division. That's scenario A. That's what we want to happen no matter what. We could lose. And if we do lose, we now want the Texans to beat the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. So those are the two scenarios for if you're wondering who to root for as a Jaguars fan. It's a little complicated, but we won't know who to root for until after 1 o'clock. But either way, to just be in this conversation right now is incredible. And I do think the Jaguars are good enough to get into the playoffs. I don't think the Colts are good enough to sweep us. And I think the resilience of this team, like the best teams in the NFL, every team has had to deal with injuries, right? The Texans dealt with a lot of injuries before the year with Tank Dell. They had C.J. Stroud went out for a few games, and Davis Mills led them on a crazy run of 3 wins. But honestly, they haven't been hurt that much. Colts haven't been that hurt. I mean, Travarius Ward was out for a little bit. It does feel like players around the league are getting hurt more this year. And I'm a little surprised because, like, in a league where it's supposed to be safer, it does feel like a lot of players are getting hurt and are out. We're supposed to have Travis Hunter back from injury. Now he's on injury reserve. So I say all that to say, when the Jaguars started losing guys in 23, that's when we fell apart. Our offensive line started getting hurt. Our receivers started getting hurt. We lost Christian Kirk. And that's when we started to fall apart. We didn't have enough depth, and we didn't have enough. The scheme wasn't good enough to overcome the loss of pieces. And then in 24, just carrying that bad juju from 23, it ended up being a horrible season for us. Liam Cohen, his team has been more beat up than Doug Peterson's team in 23. The Jaguars have had, again, I say it over and over again, we haven't had the most season-ending injuries, right? That is still the 49ers. But we have had the most injuries out of any team in the league. When we played the Chargers, we were down our top 3 receivers. That was our most injured game the entire year. We were down our top 3 receivers, and we were down our top 3 cornerbacks. I think we had gotten Jakobi Meyers. I can't remember. And when we played I think it was when we played the Raiders as well. We were down our top 3 cornerbacks. And partially it's hard because Travis Hunter is one of our top cornerbacks and top wide receivers, and he's one guy. But we were down pieces on our offensive line. We were still down Trayvon Walker, and we were down Devin Lloyd, our best defensive player, one of our best defensive players, like the Jaguars, and we've been down our starting safety for the past 5 weeks. We had the most injuries, I'm pretty sure, out of any team in the league. I didn't even talk about our tight ends being out. Both of them were out against the Chargers. We beat the Chargers 35-6. That's because Liam Cohen's energy and his infectiousness has infected this entire locker room with that fierceness to where every guy believes that he's the next guy up and he can go out there and make a play and beat his opponent. And that is crazy. And it's crazy to think that we are 8-4 and we are not at full health. It's crazy to think that we are 8-4 and we have not been at full health this season. We have not been at full health since we played the 49ers. That was the last time we were at full health because Devin Lloyd left in the Kansas City Chiefs game. I don't know if he left or if he got hurt after, but Brenton Strange left that game. That's when Brenton Strange left. Last time we were fully healthy was the Chiefs game. And I'm pretty sure it was the 49ers game. And I'm pretty sure we still lost some guys. And you look at the teams we beat. Panthers have a winning record. 49ers, winning record. I mean, a lot of the teams we beat have winning records. Now, the Chiefs might have a losing record right now, or I think they're tied. But, like, by the end of the season, the Chiefs will also pretty sure they'll have a winning record. So, Liam Cohen has changed this team. And, you know, I've been a Jaguars fan my entire life. And a lot of us are questioning whether Trevor Lawrence is the guy or not. I still don't know. We need more games from him like Tennessee. Again, I still kind of wish we hadn't paid him. Although, if we had, you know, this year, we would have been putting the franchise tag on him, I'm pretty sure, because I think his 5th-year option would have been up. And who knows if the morale of the team would have been worse if Trevor Lawrence was unsure about his future. You know, sometimes when guys know that they're protected, that energy can kind of influence other people. And when you're the captain of the team and you got to keep the team going, you know, Trevor Lawrence being signed might be better for everybody in the locker room to just be in that positive headspace. But no matter what, even Trevor Lawrence has changed the culture of our franchise. And you ask me, why do I say that? Under Trevor Lawrence, we've had 2 winning seasons and 2 losing seasons. We've had losing seasons going all the way back to 2007. Let's actually fact check this real quick. Remember, Blake Bortles delivered us 1 winning season. 2017. 1 winning season. Let's go look at the Jaguars' past seasons. So in 2007, we had a winning season of 11-5, right? Let's go from 2007 all the way to 2017. 5-11, 7-9, 8-8. So a tied season. 5-11, 2-14, 4-11, 3-13, 5-11, 3-13, Did you hear that? You want me to repeat it? I'll do it one more time. 5-11, 7-9, 8-8, 5-11, 2-14, 4-12, 3-13, 5-11, 3-13. We didn't have a single winning season for 10 years between 2007 and 2017. Not a single winning season. That is devastating. 10 years. That's when we got the reputation of being a poverty franchise. That's where that comes from, right? Because even our worst run, 1999, so from 2000 to 2004, those were all losing seasons until 2004 we had a winning season. So from 2000 to 2003, we had 4 losing seasons in a row. And that was the only time we'd had 4 losing seasons in a row. Then we had some good stuff 2005, 2006, 2007. 10 years of without a winning season. And 1 without a losing season. 2017, we go 10-6. Blake Bortles gives us 1 winning season. And we win the division. Everything goes crazy. And then 3 more losing seasons after that. Why we were a poverty franchise for the better part of my childhood. 2017, 2007 to 2017. 2022, Trevor Lawrence's second year, we go 9-8. 2023, Trevor Lawrence's third year, we go 9-8. Winning seasons, yeah. Did we make the playoffs a second time? No. A little disheartening. We should have. At least got to 10-7. I thought we were going to go 13-4. And obviously 2024, Trevor was hurt for a lot of that season, but even when he was hurt, we were still losing. Another losing season. Trevor Lawrence has given us 2 losing seasons and 2 winning seasons. And with him and Liam Cohen, he's about to deliver us our 5th. He's about to deliver us our 3rd winning season in 5 seasons. He'll give us 3 winning seasons versus 2 losing seasons. Now, again, compare that to the Chiefs, who, since taking Patrick Mahomes, have never not been to the AFC Championship game. Obviously, the bar is a little lower, right? But before you have me write off Trevor Lawrence as a bust, before you have me say that he's bad for our franchise, that he's not a franchise quarterback, look at our history and tell me what more do you want? Look at our history. I mean, I don't know if Trevor Lawrence will be our guy forever, but I'm going to be grateful at the end of this year for him giving us more winning seasons than not. Because I have not experienced that in my lifetime. I've never experienced a quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars giving us more winning seasons than not. Because I was a child last time we were good, when we had Mark Brunell and all that. And that's the reality for most Jaguars fans. So, around the national media, people criticize Trevor Lawrence and throw him under the bus. And I get it. And a lot of that criticism is well-deserved. But those people can't look at it through Jaguars' eyes, right? They just see Trevor Lawrence missing throws or things like that, and sometimes missing and losing games sometimes. Like, you brought a winner, a kid who had never won, who had never lost, except for in the playoffs. You brought a bona fide winner from high school and college and brought him to a franchise that essentially for the last 15 years, 2007, right? 2021? Yeah. 14 to 15 years have been a bona fide loser. And here we are 5 years in, and we're going to have more winning seasons than losing seasons. We probably paid him too much. I'm sorry, that's success for me. We didn't have Mike Tomlin to keep us at least above 500 for the past 15 years. We didn't. We had trash over trash over trash over trash over trash, right? And so you can call my quarterback trash as much as you want. Since he's come to our team, you can't call my franchise trash anymore. You just can't. I mean, what team in the NFL has more winning seasons than losing ones? That's not considered, elite. A lot of these elite teams. So I say all that to say that like I said, Trevor Lawrence needs to do his part and make sure that we beat the Colts. And I mean, we still could finished with a losing record this year. So, I mean, obviously we need to stave off that, but making the playoffs, it happened only twice in his career. Should have been 3 times, but I'm sorry, I'll take it. And that might sound morbidist, and I'm sure we should expect more from Trevor Lawrence and all the things that he's done. But you look at our franchise and what we've been through, and it's gonna take time for us to ever become like a consistent winner, good team. I'm just glad we're not one of the crappiest teams in the league anymore. That's it. We picked in the top 5, probably, Jesus, for 10 years in a row. And then, of course, we had 2 bad seasons. We end up with the number 1 overall pick twice. But now the Titans might be the 3rd team to end up with the number 1 overall pick twice in a row. 2 years in a row. So just cut him some slack, man. He did what he was supposed to do. We've been quarterback purgatory since 2007. 3 out of 2. And a lot of people will write off the Urban Meyer year. And if you write it off, he's 4-1. And if you write it off, he's 3-1 as far as winning seasons goes. Because once he beats the Colts, he will officially have given us another winning season. So, yeah, I would say cut him some slack. And I would say go Jags. And I would say get your butts in that stadium because it's going to be lit. So don't ever forget, it was always the Jags.